get to play.
Right. When study after study has shown that art and music
This is a demonstration
increase
of
the
Wirecast.
childhood development of the brain.
Music especially, because music is essentially math.
Right.
What is more useful to society, math or the ability to take down an opponent?
I think it's an intentional device schools are using to dumb down the population.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
I don't know who benefits from that. I think there are people that benefit.
I think that it's just so easy to support sports, and people are so afraid to cut the sports, because if you do, it's like desecrating the American flag or something like that. It's so ingrained in our society. But yeah,
it keeps people individually patriotic, where it's always the one person.
It's us against them.
Yeah.
Our team against your team.
Right.
And that, we think that's important to us as Americans, because that means we're competitive, we're going to win in the world and everything. But you go to Europe or you go to Asia, there's a lot of schools don't have
This is a
teams.
demonstration of Wirecast.
That's extracurricular. That's not even a part of the school.
Yeah.
And they concentrate very heavily on the arts and sciences.
Right. I know every school has its own problems and difficulties, but it was the same situation where I was in school. Times were tight. So they decided the first thing they're going to cut is music and art. Well, what my school did, and primarily because the parents got behind it and did all the work, is that they
is a demonstration
did
of
fundraisers.
Wirecast.
They went out there and they made it so that those programs could not be cut, because they went out and got the money to insure it.
Yeah.
And unless other parents, but once again, parents don't have the time to do that. They don't have the legwork. I think it's sad that they're allowing the sports programs to exist in place of that.
Well, the thing is, though, that I said if they really were serious about cutting the budget, they should go up and say, okay,
This is a
zero out
demonstration
the
of
sports
Wirecast.
budget. It's going to be zero tomorrow. No money. And then face the firestorm, and then once they face the firestorm, then the parents would rally behind the sports program and the local businesses in the area, and it would be a team effort to keep it afloat. And the sports would not lose a day. There would not be a single coach fired,
Right.
I guarantee it.
But where are the parents at? Are the parents standing up and saying, we will not stand for this?
Well, the parents did stand up. A lot of
Wirecast.
tears in their eyes. Don't cut this program. It's meant so much to my kid.
Dang.
So much of their life development.
So I don't know who you blame in that situation. Do you blame the people on the school board?
Partly, and then I think partly the school board, they want to keep their position, and teachers and coaches want to keep their jobs.
Yeah.
You just don't badmouth sports in this country.
Right. I understand that in the inner city schools that this has been a problem for quite a while. They've cut the art programs long ago. And so when I worked at the Nelson Atkins Museum, I pushed that the inner city school kids have special treatment since they don't get art ever. And that the Nelson should be the one picking up the slack and ensuring that they get the art education. As a responsibility as a not-for-profit, and as a responsibility as a lead crew of people that run the Nelson Atkins, to give them, the inner city kids, equal opportunity to learn about art and have their brains being developed by art, just like all the private school kids do that live in the suburbs.
And in that, the important thing really is that you get that development going.
Right.
Because that development makes a huge difference, whether or not, as we were talking about, artists moving into the Northeast and making it better, and but that makes a huge difference, and it's not frivolous. I mean, there's a guy that does a blog that I admire, Tony's Kansas City, and he's often been saying, why do we want to concentrate on these frivolous things?
Of Wirecast.
Why does the city want to spend 1% for art? Yada yada. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, because when you go to a city that has art and respects art, crime is down. It's a more livable city. The price and the value of everything is higher, but people can afford it because they have better jobs,
Yeah. And I hope when that 1% of the art shouldn't just go to art that's decorative. We should get art that explains science to children and adults.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
It should be mathematical. You know, it should be musical. It should. If it's fine art, then it shouldn't just be purely decorative. Or else it's failing as fine art. And that's what the city needs to recognize.
Well, that's another thing. It's been a trend in the past, in the modern era, and it's kind of interesting too, the whole modern versus postmodern argument and stuff.
Yeah.
But the trend is, and I was pointing this out to
this is a demonstration of
Bill Drummond
Wirecast.
last week. Is that like in architecture, what defines a modern building? A skeleton structure, you know, a framework of steel, an elevator, things like that. That's been around in this country since 1859. The first modern building was built. So what we've been arguing about since that time has been the skin of a building. And really, in art and architecture, that's all we've been arguing about for over 100 years, is the skin, the outer surface, what's on the outside, the aesthetics. And I think you were pointing, you were just saying that again when you said...
Yeah, and I think that if you want to see where a culture stands today in the 21st century, just like you said, you look at the architecture. And that's how it's always been. That's how people have judged the level of sophistication of the culture. You look at art architecture now, you look at the new Power and Light District.
This is a demonstration
of
Wirecast.
Skin.
It's communist architecture. It's function over form. It's all block squares.
Worse than that, it's Nazis.
Yeah, so that's where we are.
Yeah.
We're in a fascist country.
Well, I always call it the corptocracy. It's a democracy that's actually for the corporations, by the corporations.
We
just hit another favorite area of mine that I like to talk about. The corporate citizen.
Right. Yeah.
Or the corporate person.
The government worker that is a part of the employment of this people's survival.
What was I talking about? Oh, corporate person.
Yeah.
Corporations are a person.
Right. The new Supreme Court decision.
Well, it's more than the new Supreme Court decision. This is actually a result of the Civil War in the United States. The creation of two classes of citizenship in this country under the 14th Amendment. The amendment that was supposed to protect freedmen from discrimination, but instead has created two classes of citizens, a protected class and the rest of us. And the ones who are protected are corporations, because they are defined as a non-living person.
Right.
But not necessarily a non-living person, but a non-living person who can live longer than a normal person.
Yeah.
This is a
I know, and
demonstration of
unfortunately,
Wirecast.
institutions that could be the counterpart to that could be the example for corporations, the not-for-profits that exist, are often a lot worse than most of the corporations.
Ooh, I agree.
They treat their employees the worst. There's no job security. They have people working 40 hours a week. There's no health insurance. And then they go around touting that they do nothing but good things to the community.
To the
community, for the community.
Yeah.
When they exploit every single person that works there.
Of Wirecast.
And they do it for their own profit and vanity. And the not-for-profits are even worse than most corporations. I mean, if you're working at Sprint, you're probably a lot better off than you are at any art museum or library in our city, unfortunately, because that's where the educated people have a tendency to be drawn to. Then they get working for those places and they can barely survive because they have ridiculous pay.
For the education
This
that they have
is a
to have
demonstration
to get
of
those
Wirecast.
jobs.
Right. Well, Linda Hall Library is the #1 science and technology library in the world, located in Kansas City, and also the absolute worst paying library that exists in the United States.
Wow. I didn't know that.
So if you work at half-price books, you get insurance and you get paid better than at Linda Hall Library, which is the #1 science and technology library.
That's amazing.
All because the people that sit on the boards of the not-for-profits in Kansas City are greedy, corrupt people that only do things that benefit themselves. They don't do it to benefit the individuals that work there or the community. They do all this legacy building where they want to put their stamp on the not-for-profit so they can say, I did this when I was here.
Yeah, well, I did know about that.
But yeah,
Pat me on the back because I'm a rich person doing a good thing. I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
This is a
But the
demonstration
corporate
of
talk